All right, I want to sort of orient you where we are before I start in on this. And if you look over here behind me, this is the model home. And what I want you to see, the remains of the next school, all that remains of them. I'm actually going to dart across the street here, get a closer view. I think I know these people. Always afraid I come out here, and people look at me like you're trespassing. So you see that column right there? I think you can see it. And there's one across the street. Hopefully you can see these. And the garage back there is also a possible survivor from what we're going to look at here. So let me get back across the street here. And I want to show you a picture of those stone columns, and then I'll tell you what their significance of that place is. So we're just out of sight of town here, and I could have, planned this better, but it is what it is. So you will see those columns, at least roughly. I gotta hope it's in here. Of course it's not. Yeah, here we go. I'll show you this picture in class a little bit better, but those columns where you see those kids marching through are those same ones here. Sitting back a little ways back behind there, that was Briarly, what was originally called Briarly Hall. Briarly Hall was built in about 1874. It was a pretty good sized 3-story building. Mrs. Mary Porter and her daughter, Wilhelmina, who was known as Miss Wilhelmina, or Miss Willie, actually decided to start the school. I've heard various theories that this was after Mrs. Porter's husband had died and they used the money to buy the land. I don't know if that was true or not, but in the 1870s, women began to become very involved in what was called municipal house cleaning at the time. This is the first time when it's becoming acceptable for women to be involved, if you will, in politics. And education was one of the areas, the child welfare, that was considered okay for women to work in. And so the Porters decided to open a school. They chose Poolsville as the place of the school, and they built back where this house is a little bit further, been in their backyard. They built Briarly Hall. Unfortunately, as happened in the 19th century, and as we may be learning to live with again, who knows, disease would strike. And very popular Miss Willie, Mary Porter's daughter and fellow co-founder, actually died about 6 or 7 years after the school was founded. She died in the school building. She had pneumonia. She got pneumonia. She'd gotten sick. It had become pneumonia, and it ended up killing her fairly young. Mrs. Porter ran it the next year, kind of lost heart, sold it to a relative of hers, and she continued to run the school. And the school was a boarding school for females. It was a women's boarding school, and you learned numerous things, like there was an emphasis on home arts, as they called it, cooking and housekeeping and managing a household, and all of what you would think of as late 19th century female roles. They did also emphasize the importance of education, not too surprisingly, and they did produce a fair number of teachers out of the school. Sometime between roughly 1904 and 1911, they close it. Briarly Hall closes, and it reopens in September of 1912 as Briarly Hall Military Academy. And we don't know if those stone columns had been added when the original building was built, or if it was added when it became the military academy and it held up the sign. They were very active in sports. In 1915, they won the championship here in baseball. The earliest organized football team in Poolesville was Briarly Hall Military Academy. The children went on special occasions, march out of the hall and through the town of Poolesville. And so all of that was happening there. Military academies were fairly popular. Part of the reason may have had to do with the fact that the Civil War had been fought in the 1860s. It's 30 years earlier. Maybe it was our success in the Spanish-American War in 1898. But there was a concern, touted by, among others, Teddy Roosevelt, that, what's up, guys? That American males were becoming too soft and female-like, and that a military education is what they needed. Roosevelt went so far as to suggest that we had justification for going to war with Spain in 1898, but the war was a good thing because we had lost our manliness as a country. And so there was this emphasis on military academies. Now, there was a free school when this institution opened. The free school for African Americans was the Poolesville Colored School, which we saw the tape on. It's down the road just a little over a mile. And then back into town would have been, back at the high school would have been where the school, Poolesville, for the white kids were. But if you had little money, you could go here. And they did have day students. You didn't have to live in the barracks to go here. So that's it. I will talk to you later.